Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Ariens Deluxe 28 and the Toro PowerMax HD 828 OAE. Both of these snowblowers are great for working in heavy, wet snow. Both of them will handle slush. Both of them will handle your typical two-car driveway very well. We're going to take a look at how they're the same and how they are different. And my goal here is to help you decide which one is best for you. So let's get started.
Down in the dirt. Been real bad.
So who are these designed for? This type of snowblower is designed for people that get 30 to 50 inches of snow a year. Typically, you get up to 10 inches of snow at a time. I call these good Midwest snowblowers because they will handle the light fluffy stuff, and they'll also handle that heavy wet slop that we get sometimes, like we got last week. Both of these have 14-inch impellers and 14-inch augers. That's larger than most of the other ones that are in this price range, and that allows them to throw that heavy wet snow a lot better. Going around the machine, the Ariens and the Toro both have the same size tires. They both have the same size engine. The Ariens is a 254 cc. The Toro is a 252 cc. The Ariens is all metal. Just about everything on it except for a few covers is metal. The Toro is all metal except for the covers and the dash. The dash is metal reinforced. So they've gotten away from the poly. Particularly Toro has gone back to the metal chutes and the metal anti-clearing system, or ACS as we call it. So the machines are very comparable. The Ariens now has been around for 7 years. The Toro, this is new this year. The Ariens was the first snowblower on the market with the automatic steering. Ariens took the chance, and we had a couple design changes that we had to make to get it perfect. But then since, I'd say last 5 years or so, this snowblower has not had any issues at all. The Toro uses the same automatic steering system. And we'll take the covers off the transmission here towards the end of the video, and you can see how they look, how they operate, and what makes these transmissions so nice. Continuing on, they both have remote chutes and remote deflectors. I'll talk about the differences in how those work. Both have really good handlebars, nice solid handlebars, nice solid mounts. Both have headlights on them. Toro is using a new LED that sits up in front by the engine. Ariens uses the halogen that they're famous for. Very bright light, and it's mounted up on the dash. All right, let's start with the dash. What's the same and what's different? Both of them have a 6-speed transmission, 6 forward gears and 2 in reverse. Both of them have a deflector and auger rotation. Both of them, I'm going to put this is my remote control for my camera, so I'm going to lay this down a second. Both of them use an over-center handle. So when you push down, the belt tightens up, and then the handle kind of goes over center here. So once it's down, it's real easy to hang on to. There's not a lot of force trying to lift it up. So if you have small hands or weaker hands, these work great. Like I said, the Ariens has an all-metal dash. Headlight is up here. These are both right-hand control machines. So if you're going along, this is your drive lever, this is your auger lever. You can take your hand off of the right-hand side and adjust your speed, adjust your deflector, and rotate your chute. So we'll talk more about the chute as we go along, but control-wise, this is your deflector, and it has different positions, nice solid metal slots here. It doesn't bounce out. The chute control, you reach over the front and use your right hand to control it. It's very precise, and it stays exactly where you want it to stay. Some machines have large teeth in them in the gearing system, so that you can either do it this way or that way or that way. The Ariens is very precise, so you can get your snow exactly where you want. And it also stays in place. And if you've ever used one that has a crank back here, a lot of times the weight of the crank will cause the thing to move. This one doesn't do that. So control-wise, this one takes a little bit getting used to, because as you're using it, you reach over, do your chute control, do your deflector control here, change your speed. Some people like this, some people hate it. Let's go to the Toro. The Toro also has over-the-center controls, but they're not quite as over-the-center as the Ariens. If you've got small hands, I really have to say that the Ariens is probably just a tiny bit easier to use, but it's still very easy to hang on to. There's not a lot of tension here, so once you're up and running, you can run a long time without your hands cramping up if you have those types of problems. On the Toro, you have your speed selector here, and then you have a joystick that controls the chute and the deflector. It has notches in it, so it'll lock in place every 15 degrees or so. And the deflector also has notches that allow it to lock in place. Some people love the quick stick, some people hate the quick stick. In other words, they do the same thing, they just do it differently. Myself, with this one, I have to remember to, when I get ready to move it, I got to hang on to it tight if I'm blowing snow, because if I'm not paying attention, the deflector will pop up as there's snow coming out of it. Just something you get used to. Is it a problem? No. Neither one of these have hand warmers. The Ariens, you can add hand warmers as an optional kit if you want to. Toro does not have a kit for this one, and I don't know of anybody who's come up with the parts yet to put one on this machine. The biggest thing to understand is that if you add hand warmers to a snowblower that does not have hand warmers on it, the alternator may not be able to handle both the light and the hand warmers. So make sure you do your research if you think that's something you have to put on this snowblower. Let's continue on with the chutes here. The Ariens chute is longer. The Ariens deflector is also a little bit longer. They're the same height on the snowblower, but if you look over, you see that the ACS, or anti-clog system, on the Toro sticks up a little bit higher, which makes the chute a little bit smaller. The Ariens is going to throw snow in a better pattern than this Toro. If you move up to the next size machines, in other words, these are the 8-horse, 28-inch machines. If you move up to the 9-horse machines, which would be the Toro 928 and the Ariens Deluxe SHO, Ariens still uses this chute because it works well for them. Toro switches to a double jointed chute at that point. The chute is longer and it allows the machine to put snow closer to the snowblower. The Ariens machine comes down nicely. The Toro machine doesn't come down quite as far. If you want to throw snow real close to you with the Ariens, you just aim it forward and it'll lay it right alongside. And you can do the same thing with the Toro too. One feature about these two machines that makes them much better than the other stuff in this price range is the size of the chutes. These are huge compared to a lot of the other brands. In other words, the clearance in here is much wider, much bigger. The output coming out of the impeller is much larger. They're both the same size coming out of the impeller, except the Ariens has a little bit more of a kicker here to help get the snow out. Small minor difference, you probably won't notice it if you're running them side by side. The biggest feature of these large chutes, combined with the larger impeller and the larger auger, compared to the other brands in this price range, is that they handle that heavy wet snow so well. They'll even handle slush. Typically, these will throw heavy snow just as far as they'll throw light, fluffy stuff. They'll also throw slush very well. In other words, they won't throw it 40 feet, but they'll throw it 25, 30 feet. Both of these machines will. And typically, they get the snow up and moving and out the chute. It doesn't pile up and dribble out the front here like it does with some of the other machines. You know what I'm talking about. These are so much better when it comes to clearing that typical heavy wet stuff. All right, to finish up on the deflector and chute controls, Ariens uses a metal pinion and then a large ring here. So as you turn it, it stays put. And this poly, or it's actually a fiber reinforced poly, is going to last a long time. It's easy to replace if you do wear it out. The metal gear is never going to wear out on you. It's real easy to remove and install, that type of stuff. The Toro is a little different. It has a lot more going on up here, so this carrier that holds the shaft is larger. Also, because of the joystick, the gear doesn't turn as much as it does with the Ariens, so you have a big, huge gear here and a small gear here. The leverage is a little bit differently. Either way, they both work well. This gear down here is not a gear, it's a locking mechanism. So there's a set of teeth and a cable here that locks the machine in the different positions. And this is a normal size tooth, so that's going to last, this is going to last, this is going to last. The cable is a heavy-duty industrial cable with molded ends on it, so that's also going to hold up. Same way, both of them on the deflector control, they are good sealed cables. Both have boots on the ends. Both of them are never going to give any problems. The Ariens is a little bit unique in the field of snowblowers. The Ariens, they run the cable over the top, so there's no chance of moisture running into the cable and freezing it up. That's a different system. They also have a nice solid spring here that's held in place with a rod, so that will also never fall out or never give you any problems. 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. Both are good systems, both are a little different. One thing I have noticed, and it's a small minor little detail, but taking these machines apart and putting them back together again, I noticed that Ariens uses a little bit heavier bolts or hardware than what the Toro does. Nothing wrong with the Toro, it's just interesting. For example, this nut here that holds the cover on is 5/16. This is 3/8. Same way with the hanger for the chute. The Toro is one size, the Ariens is just one size bigger. Is that a problem? No. I just think it's interesting that there's little tiny quality differences in them. Nothing that's bad, nothing that makes one better over the other, but it's just interesting to see. All right, let's move on to the front end. All right, so we have 3 more areas to cover. We're going to cover the front end, we'll cover the engines, and then we're going to get inside the transmissions and take a look at them. Take a look at the insides and see how they're the same and different. It's little things that help you decide which one of these 2 machines is the best for you. Capability-wise, dependability-wise, they're really both the same machines. They both handle snow well, they both have good engines, they're both easy to operate. Your dealer does make a difference. If you like your Toro dealer better than the Ariens dealer, well, buy the Toro. If you like the Ariens dealer better, buy the Ariens. If you have gift cards at Home Depot, well, the Toro is a good choice. If you have gift cards at Lowe's, the Ariens is a good choice. But there are subtle little differences. Both of these machines come with steel skid shoes. You can buy optional heavy-duty polish shoes if you'd rather use them on your pavers and stuff like that. But for example, the Ariens skid shoe that comes with the machine is just a little bit wider and uses the next gauge heavier steel than what the Toro does. Subtle little differences, nothing real big, nothing that's going to say don't buy this machine or the other, but there are other little things, and we'll go through them. All right, so let's talk about the front ends. Both machines have the same housing height, so they'll both handle the same depth of snow well. Both of them have a rolled edge here on the front. So if you have to pick one up and change shear pins or something like that, they won't mess with your fingers. They're easy to do. Both of them have stampings on the sides to make the sides nice and solid so they don't cave in like some of the old machines used to do. Ariens uses an auger housing that forces the snow down into the machine as quickly as possible. Toro's keeps the snow more level. When it's really deep, and it drops down as it gets into the machine. The Toro's housing has just a slight angle back to it here, which kind of helps when you're working in really deep snow. It kind of helps the snow fall down into the machine better. It's not really noticeable for just about any snow that you do until you get really into the really deep stuff. Both of them you can buy drift cutters for if you need them. So now let me tip them up and we'll talk about how they process snow. All right, the Toro system we'll look at first here. The Toro uses a 14-inch impeller, 14-inch front augers. The front augers are what I call open design. So they grab the snow, chew it up, and then it aerates the snow as it goes in the machine, which helps make it a little bit lighter and fluffier, so it throws out of the machine better. The flights have the kickers on it to keep snow from sticking to them. It's always a problem with some of the other machines in the heavy wet stuff. They won't use these kickers, so the snow will all build up and you end up with a solid cylinder across here. Toro uses an aluminum gearbox, an aluminum top load gearbox, so there's no seams to leak, and they use hardened steel gears inside. Because of that, they don't have any shear pins. They do have 2 bolts, one on each side, to hold the auger to the inner shaft, but they're not really designed as shear bolts. If you get something in a Toro, like a frozen newspaper or something like that, and it jams it up, the belts will slip. So if it stops throwing snow, let loose of the handle right away or you may burn some belts. I've had a couple people already this year state that they got something caught in the machine and they burnt the belts up right away. Metal scraper bar down here. Metal scraper bar is adjustable, so if you run your machine right on the ground and you wear this, you can slide it down some over time until you have to replace it. It is easily replaced, just 7 bolts or so replaces it. The impeller itself is a cupped shaped impeller, so it grabs the snow and throws it out like your hand as fast as possible. I noticed that Toro is using different impellers for different machines. In other words, this one is only a 254 cc engine, so it has plenty of power to do all the work, but when you go to their 420 cc's, this bracing back here is a lot larger. Extra horsepower, they may have felt that they would have problems bending these cups, so they put extra bracing in the big ones. But these are plenty strong. These are stronger than most of the ones you're going to find. The Toros are unique because they have the way they handle snow is they pull the snow into here and it goes into the impeller and gets thrown out. But if there's too much snow, it doesn't come out the chute right away. It'll spin around in here in what they call their anti-clog system. And that helps this machine throw snow very far. It's a unique system. It works really well. Toro's had it for a long time. Toro changed it 2 years ago and went with an all-metal design instead of the poly one that they had in the past. All right, let's move over and take a look at the Ariens. The Ariens also uses an open-faced auger, serrated. It's got the kickers on it. Works very well, aerates the snow, gets it into it. The Ariens does use shear pins. So this is a hardened steel gear and a brass and a hardened steel gear inside this cast iron gear case. It's built for long life. It's built to run quietly, and it does. Again, this is a sealed unit. It's a top load, so there's no place for it to leak oil or anything like that down here on the bottom. The Toro uses shafts that run all the way over to the sides. For Toro, that works very well. For other brands that don't use as heavy a components in here, that system, like the Toro, over time this long bar will tend to sag and you'll get a little jerk or a little shimmy when you're using it. Well, Ariens completely eliminated that. They have, these shafts only come out about this far inside this gearbox, got your shear pin here, and then the whole gearbox is held in place with these brackets up here. So you never have to worry about any sag or shimmy with an Ariens product either. It's built to last. They just don't have problems with them. Let's go back inside and look at the impeller. Ariens also uses a cupped impeller. And the Ariens machine is designed to get the snow, aerate the snow, get it into the impeller, and get it out of the machine right away. Any excess snow on an Ariens, instead of turning around in that big open cavity on the Toro, they'll take and throw it out over here and then rotate it back in again. So it handles snow differently, but it handles it the same as far as handling heavy wet snow and slush. With the Toro, with the ACS, if you put them side by side, the Toro throws snow further, but the Ariens throws snow faster, meaning you get more snow out of the machine a little bit quicker. It's hard to notice with an 8-horse, but once you get up into the big machines, then you can see the difference a little bit. Ariens also has braces on the back side of the cups. And these Ariens uses 3 different impellers depending on the machine. The heavy-duty machines with the smaller engines like this Deluxe 28 use this impeller. You also see that on the Deluxe 30 and the Deluxe 24. They have another impeller it's called their super high output that they use on the Deluxe 28 SHO, the Platinum series. Then they have a third impeller, I'll use the right term. They have a third impeller that they use on the Pro series. So either way, all the way through, they're designed for the different horsepower levels of these machines, and they're designed to handle snow as efficiently as possible, get it through the machine and out the chute. Also on the Ariens, their shear bar is not adjustable. They prefer that you keep the snowblower 1/8 of an inch away from the sidewalks and stuff like that. That way they don't catch on cracks quite as easily. It is easily replaceable, just like the Toro. Looking at any other similarities, both of these have really good welds on them. They have a lot of welds, so the machines are solid and stiff, and they won't rattle on you over years. Welding is a lot better than spot welding. So spot welding, it tends to, as the vibrations of the machine over the years, the spot welds tend to pop loose and you end up with flapping sides and stuff like that. Toro's made in Minnesota, Ariens is made in Wisconsin. All right, any questions on how these handle snow? Yes, I had the skid shoes off of both of them because that's the only way I could get them through the door to get them inside here where it's warm. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about the engines, and then we'll take care of the transmissions. All right, when you're looking at the engines, the Toro engine looks bigger than the Ariens when you first look at the machine, but they're not. They're both the same size physically. The Toro transmission case is larger than the transmission case on the Ariens, so the engine sets up taller. That's what makes them look different. Both have metal gas tanks. Both have decent quiet mufflers on them. Both of them are 110 volt electric start or recoil. Both of them use a compression release to help you start with the recoil. In other words, they're both easy to use. Both of them have fuel shutoff valves, and fuel shutoff valves are important. If you buy your fuel in the fall, put fuel stabilizer in it. Of course, I like to use Seafoam. A couple other good brands that work well for me are K100 and Stable 360 Performance. Put that in your gas can when you go buy your fuel. Then put that fuel in these machines. You won't have any starting issues, but one of the secrets to not having any starting issues is when you're done using the machine, before you turn the engine off, turn the fuel valve off. Let it run out of fuel, let it starve and run out of fuel. That gets the fuel out of the carburetor, and the fuel stabilizer coats the components inside a little bit to keep them from oxidizing. If you get in the habit of doing that every time, you won't have any starting issues. And you'll be able to start these next fall without any issues at all. Both of these have throttles. Toro is in the conventional spot over here. Ariens throttle is this gray knob underneath the choke. Both of them have the safety keys. Ariens also has a start-stop switch. Both of them have the primer bulbs. Both of them have chokes. The Ariens choke is notched. The Toro's choke is just a friction lever. Now I want to bring out one thing. These are a little bit smaller engines, so one thing you need to be aware of, in the winter time, you may not be able to run these engines with the choke all the way open. In other words, if it's really cold out, you may have these running on one notch off of full choke, one notch off of completely open, just so they run smoothly. Since these jets are so small in these carburetors nowadays for fuel economy and all that other stuff, any adjustment that you have to do to your fuel mixture is done with the choke. So if you have one that won't run with the choke wide open, that's really not an issue. That's the way these snowblower engines work. Make sure you understand your directions on how the choke works and the other components here. For example, this one, choke is closed all the way over here, open up here. On the Toro, choke is closed to your left, open to your right. And I have gotten that one mixed up a couple times. Couldn't get it to start. Well, come to find out I had the choke open instead of closed. So if you have any issues with getting them started or anything like that, make for sure that you have all your switches set in the right position. It's real easy to forget to turn the stop run switch on. It's real easy to forget to turn the fuel valve on. What else on the engines? These both have quiet mufflers. This cover here on the Toro looks larger than the cover on the Ariens because it comes over and more of the heat, the way their heating system is designed for the carb, this is part of that. Ariens, their heating system is down below here a little bit more. So 6 to 1, half a dozen the other. Both of these engines have a real good reputation. Both of them don't have starting issues like some of the other brands do. Both of them have quite a bit of torque for their size. Both Toro and Ariens make this machine with a little larger engine in it. The Ariens is the Deluxe 28 SHO. The Toro is the 928. In other words, if you're living here in the Midwest and you typically get 6, 8, 10 inches of snow, these engines will do a good job. If you live closer to an area that gets more snow, say you typically get 8 to 14 inches instead of 6 to 10, then it's a good idea to move up to the next size. The 928 Toro and the Deluxe SHO also handle that really heavy, deep snowplow drift just a little bit better. So these are good basic machines. They're simple to use, simple to operate. I highly recommend either one of these machines for most people. But if you get into areas that get a lot more snow, if you get 100 inches a year or 150 inches a year, you want to look at the high horsepower machines, the ones with the 414 and the 420 cc engines on them. If you live somewhere in between, say for example along the east shore of Lake Michigan, where you get a little more snow and most of the time it's a little heavier, well, then it doesn't hurt to move up to the next size above these. But all in all, these two machines are going to handle snow better than any other brand out there on the market. I like both of the machines. The other designs that use the 12-inch and 10-inch impellers, they just don't handle the wet snow near as well as these do. I consider the Deluxe 28 the standard. It's been around for the longest time, and the Toro 828 is very close to it. All right, let's take a look inside at the transmissions. As we're moving around, the Ariens uses 2 belts for the impeller and a single belt for the transmission. And your tension is adjusted outside. Even though this is moving in here, you adjust the tension, belt tensions, all from the outside of the machine. The Toro uses a single belt to drive the impeller and a single belt to drive the transmission. Again, the adjustments for these are done outside of the machine. You don't have to pull these covers off to make any belt adjustments. If you want to get inside the transmission on your snowblower, it's fairly easy to do. The first thing I recommend that you do is make sure you have less than a half a tank of fuel in the snowblower. Then start the snowblower up and turn off the fuel valve and let it run until the carburetor is empty. From that point on, you just grab the handles and you tip it up onto its nose. We call this the service position. Once it's tipped up on your nose, the easiest thing to do is to go ahead and take the wheels off. You don't always have to do that. Some machines, the bolts for the transmission case are all right here in the front. On others, there are some bolts on the side that you have to take off. So on a lot of them, it's easier just to take the wheels off. Toro's wheels are very simple. You just pull this clevis pin, slide the wheel off. I don't need to take them off on this one, so I'm going to go ahead and put this one back on. The Ariens is also easy to take off, but there's one more little thing that you need to deal with. Okay, this clip, you just pull this top piece of this clip up, and this clip slides right off. Now, there's a keyway. The Toro wheel is held onto the axle with a metal key, so that if anything happens, it'll shear that key. But you want to make sure that you keep that and don't lose it when you take your wheel on and off. Otherwise, the machine won't go forward for you. So you take your clip off, slide it, and you can see the keyway here. So I like to make sure they're pointed up. And then as I take the wheel off, now you can see this key here. So make sure you take that out and keep that with your clip. And make sure you put it back in when you go put your wheels back on. All right, the Ariens has one piece cover, and then it has 6 bolts to take out. So 2 across the top and 2 down each side. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And when you're taking it apart, the bolts are, everything is metric on here, but a 3/8 inch socket is the right size, will also work. So you don't have to have a metric set to work on these. One more little thing on the Ariens. The 2 bolts up here are shorter than the 4 bolts down here, so keep track of them that way. All right, so then just take your cover off. When you look inside your cover, you're going to see some stuff. These transmission cases are not sealed, so they do get moisture inside of them, which is no problem. You're also going to see some black spots, which is the rubber tire in the friction disc transmission. Little stuff wearing off of that. And you also might see some lumps of grease and some oil. That's normal. And the older your machine gets, the dirtier this is going to get. You can wipe it off if you want. You don't have to. The Toro again, 4 bolts on this first plate and then 4 bolts on the second plate. You don't have to take the second plate off if you're just going to look inside. You can just take this top plate off. And the Toro bolts are all the same length, so you don't have to worry about keeping 2 separate. Both the Toro and the Ariens have basically the same components inside the transmission case. You have your friction disc and your friction wheel, which is your transmission. This friction disc comes up to this wheel, and that's your clutch. That's what makes your machine move forward and backwards. When you pull on the lever, this plate comes up and touches this wheel, which makes everything drive. Let me pull on the handles here so you can see. See how that moves up and down? Then where this tire is based on this disc is how fast or slow you go. So in other words, if it's over here, you're going pretty fast. If you come to the center, you're going slow. And then when you want to back up, you pull it over to the other side, and now it goes in reverse. That's all there is to a transmission in a snowblower. They're pretty simple. Down below here, that's your impeller belt. And there's a brake, a band that fits around this so that when you when you let go of the handle, the impeller stops as fast as possible. This here is the differential. General Transmissions makes basically 3 of these differentials. They make a residential grade, which is what this one and the Deluxe use. Then they make a light duty for products like the Snowmaster. And then they make a heavy duty version for the Pro Series snowblowers. That one is quite a bit heavier than these. But they're all designed to last a long time. They work very simply. When you're going along straight, this gear drives this gear, and both of your wheels turn. Can you see that? Let me back this up just a little bit. The engine is spinning this. This starts to turn, comes up through the chain to this gear, comes to the differential. If you're going straight, the differential drives both wheels. When you turn the handle, one of the wheels wants to go slower than the other, so the differential automatically releases. So you want to turn to the left, this wheel will want to go slower than this one, so. And if you want a zero turn, it unlocks, it automatically unlocks so you can zero turn the machine. It's a very, very simple design, and I have a Cutaway here I can show you in a little bit just how few components there is in it and how well it works. AutoTurn, automatic steering. General Transmissions calls it an auto-intuitive differential. It's just basically an automatic unlocking differential. There's no electric, no solenoids, no cables or anything like that it uses to sense. It's just two mechanical plates that work together. It's seamless. It doesn't break. If you're having problems with your AutoTurn, it's always how the snowblower is set up. It's not this gearbox itself. While I'm down here, adjusting your tension on your belts and stuff like that is very easy to do. You've got two connectors here. This one is over for the auger. This one is for the drive. When you grab a hold of these, they should have just a little bit of play. See, they have just a little bit of play. When you pull down on the handle, those stretch and tighten up. And on both the Ariens and the Toro, this only moves about a 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch at the most. The tension here so that your belt tension is proper is all set up here. If you pull on your handle and this is still loose, then you loosen this nut here and make this longer or shorter to adjust your tension. That's all. That's how simple it is to adjust these. The cables and everything are all nice, crimped and soldered cables, so you don't have a problem with them. They last and last and last. Inside of the transmission, there's nothing you have to adjust. All right, so let's move over to the Ariens and take a look at that one. Okay, the components are all the same on the Ariens. This is your impeller. This is the brake for the impeller. This is your friction disc. This is your friction wheel. This is your AutoTurn or your auto locking differential. Ariens also uses a ball bearing here and a hex shaft for driving it, that type of stuff. Instead of putting the chain over on this side, they just put it here. The gear ratios are just a little bit different inside. In other words, Toro, this gear is a little bigger, and their ring gear, the ring gear on the differential is a little taller. Other than that, the components are all identical. They both use what's called the DI 300 series differential in them. You adjust the cables or adjust the tension on your belts the same way on the Ariens as you do on the Toro. Up here, you loosen this screw and adjust this tighter or shorter, same way over here. Ariens also has very good cables on it. These are going to last you a long, long time. Nice heavy duty grommets on them. They do come from the factory, a little tie wrap on here. You can leave that on, you don't need to take it off, but that's from the factory, so when the handle is dropped down, these won't fall out of these holes. But again, set your tension, should be just slightly loose, and when you pull on your handle, it should tighten up. These levers will move, this cable will move about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch or so. This is the shifter lever, just like we showed, moves the friction disc back and forth. And I promised I'd show you this cutaway of the differential. Here are your two axles. Here are your two case covers. Here's the pinion ring. And these two plates here have springs in between them. These are toothed against this plate and toothed against this plate. So when you want to turn, everything, the springs hold these to get out like this. And when you want to turn, see if I can do it, it's kind of tough. It releases. See, it's real simple. They don't wear out. We've had these now 7-8 years, and we haven't had any of these wear out at all. I expect them to last as long as the machine. So there's no lubrication that you have to do to these. These come pre-lubricated from the factory. There's no grease zerks or anything on them. Curious, huh? That's why it makes that little clicking sound when you turn. This plate is releasing to allow that axle to turn. So, in normal, when you're going forward, both plates are locked in. When you want to turn or when you want to zero turn, one or the other will release. That's how simple it is. While I'm inside the transmission cases, I want to cover one more thing that I do get quite a few questions on. That's lubrication. Both of these snowblowers are set up so that you really don't have to lubricate the inside of the case, but you can if you want to. You can put a little grease here on these gears. You can put a little grease on this chain. You can wipe some grease onto this shaft where the friction disc moves back and forth. But one thing I want to be very clear about is do not drip any oil or grease on this rubber tire or on this plate here. In fact, I highly recommend that you take a shop rag and lay a shop rag in here while you're working so you don't get any grease or oil. If you get grease or oil on that, then the snowblower is going to slip. The wheels aren't going to work quite as well as they should. So make sure you keep this clean. But you can put some grease on here, you can put some grease on here, and you can wipe some grease on this shaft. All right? Okay, that's more than you needed to know, right? In summary, both of these snowblowers are very good machines. They both handle snow very, very well. They'll handle wet, heavy snow, and they'll handle slush. Both are built extremely well. Both of these machines will last you years on your residential property. Neither one are commercial units. If you're going to go out and make money blowing snow, I highly recommend that you go get a commercial snow thrower. But from a homeowner standpoint, if you got a 2-car driveway that's 125 foot long or less. If you want to clean a spot for your dogs, you want to do clean your patio, clean a bunch of sidewalks, these are really good machines. Both Toro and Ariens make machines with larger horsepower engines on them. They also make them with higher capacity, but for 80% of us, these are just the perfect snow thrower. Basically, I like to say if you're anywhere along Interstate 80, typically within 100 miles or so each side of Interstate 80, you average about 30 to 40 inches a year, some areas 50 inches. These are good machines. They'll throw any snow that you want, clear any driveway that you want. They'll clear spots for your dog out in the yard. They'll do gravel. They'll do pavers. They won't plug on the heavy wet stuff, and they work very, very well on the lighter snows. So if you typically get up to about 10 inches of snow, these are just almost the perfect snowblower for you. If you get more than that, then I kind of recommend you go to the higher horsepower ones. But value-wise, for the money, you can't beat these. Which one is my preference? Boy, that's hard to say. I've been using the Ariens for a long time now, and I'm very used to the machine and the AutoTurn system. Using the Toro, the 828, it's the same. In other words, it's just there. It's easy to operate. Personally, I have a little problems with the quick stick, but that's just me. My favorite Chute and deflector control right now is the one on the Ariens Pros. Everything just works good, and it's right there, easy for you to get at. But all these are just little nuances. If you have a good Toro dealer, go to the Toro dealer. If you have a good Ariens dealer, go there. If you have gift cards, or if you get a better military discount from Home Depot or from Lowe's, pick the one that they have. Either one of these are going to be good machines for you. I know you want to see these blow snow, and I've only had one snow so far this year. Next snow I get, we'll get both of these out and we'll show them off, and that way you can see if I'm telling the truth or not. All right, any comments or questions, feel free to ask them down in the comment section below. If you like this video, please like it. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Down in the dirt. There